Welcome to Mrs. Peach Thrifty Living. I'm so happy you're here today. Today is another episode of my grandpa's life story time. Grandpa and Grandma had 18 children, all single births, no twins or triplets. And number 9 is a girl. And this is the story will be telling you about today. Go back in the playlist and you can listen to about all of the others that I've already went over there. Cousin Loy Marie put this all together. One year she was at a reunion and she went and talked to some of the different family members and recorded some of what they said, and then came back and put it in a playlist, beginning with the first one born on down to number 9. Loy Marie is the one that did it, and this is about her mother. So she tells about several different ones. I will be reading quite a bit of this. Please forgive my looking up and down so much. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you would please reach down there. There's a little button at the end. You'll see how it looks, and you can press that button and subscribe to my channel. You can go back and watch anything you would like. I have the playlist that there's also a section in there of a glimpse of my life, which is my life story, and it's ongoing, all kinds of twists and turns in it. And I have cooking, shopping hauls. Glenn, our brother that plays the piano beautifully, he is on there every once in a while, and I play also and sing. And Sharon's been on here. You'll see little glimpses of all kinds of people. Madge Marie, she was born in 1919. She married Lloyd James in 1941, and they have 2 children. This is some of the things she remembers about her brothers and sisters. Lowell was the oldest. He helped their mother in the kitchen a lot, especially on holidays. Lowell is known in the family as the one who could make good cakes. He also helped with the stock and the outside chores. Some of Madge's first memories of Miriam, I think he was the second, was that he always did his chores outside, the feeding and the carrying of the stock. She doesn't remember Miriam helping in the house. Miriam used to whistle all the time while he did his chores. There was a time when Madge was very young that her mother was going to take Madge's picture. Madge decided she didn't want her picture taken. So she ran outside and hid under the porch at the back door. After searching for Madge for a time, Lula found her hiding spot and crawled into the house and pulled her out. When Madge was just a little over 3 years old, she remembers her sister Velma Olive being born. She was born in 1922. Velma is just younger than Buster. At this time, they were living in the log house on the hill. This house was called the John Hogg House. A number of the family was born there. Madge remembers that her mother saying that Austin was the first one to be born in the John Hogg House. In the spring of 1922, Charlie and some of the boys and other men were building a bigger log house down the hill from about a quarter or more mile from where they were living in. It was warm enough this time to go barefooted. Benson, Wally, and Madge were going to tell the men to come for dinner. About halfway down, there was another 2-room log cabin where Grandpa Tom and Grandma Mary Ellen lived. And the fields were full of wild flowers. There were some flowers that looked like pansies. They were called rooster heads. Covered the hill. So on the way down, Madge picked some wildflowers. Madge took the flowers she had picked to her grandma. The new house was finished the June of 1922. They had not finished the fireplace at that time, they moved into the house. On October 1922, Velma Olive got sick with the croup, and she died coughing in her mother's arms. Oh my goodness, how sad. The next summer of 1923, Lula was out washing clothes. The water had to be heated in big pots on the open fire. Lula was washing and rubbing the clothes on the rub board, and Madge told her that she would punch the clothes down that was boiling in the pot. At the time, Madge was barefooted. As she stepped closer to the pots, in what she thought was ashes, she saw hot coals underneath. When Madge stepped down, she just stood there, rooted to the spot. She finally started picking up one foot and setting it down, and then picking up the other, but not moving on the hot coals. Oh my goodness. Madge started crying and yelling for help. I had stopped what she was doing to pick Madge up off the coals. Both of Madge's feet were burned badly. If Lula hadn't kept oilcloth between Madge's toes, her toes would have grown together. She was about 4 years old at this time, and she remembers she had to crawl around. Albert was the first baby born in the new house. All of the rest that was born after him was born there. When Madge was 6 years and 3 months old, she started the school. School was about 3/4 mile from her one way. The children walked this no matter what kind of weather it was. Sometimes, if there was a horse that wasn't being used, someone would take Madge to school on the horse. One winter or early spring, the children were on their way home from school and had to cross over a creek. It was called Breach. They were to cross over this creek on a log. As Madge started to cross, she was a little afraid and her feet slipped out from under her, and she fell in the water. Lester grabbed her out of the water. He took off his coat and gave it to Madge to put on her to wear the rest of the way home. School, arithmetic was her favorite subject. As the children grew older, there would be times that Lula would go to town with Charlie and leave the children at home. Because Madge was the oldest of the girls, Lula would tell her, "You are in charge to see that the chores are done." Each of the children would have some chores that was to be done. Well, after Lula and Charlie was gone, Madge tried to exercise her authority and see that each one did their chores that were assigned to them. The children younger than Madge thought she was very bossy. And quote from Madge is, she probably was. She admitted it. The boys all helped in the house with doing the dishes and seeing that the water and the wood was brought in. Benson and some of the boys were good about making carts out of cultivator wheels. They would work real hard to push this cart up the hill, and everyone could jump in it and ride down. When Madge went anywhere, she always had plenty of chaperones with her. She was between Wally and Buster. So Buster must be the next one we'll be talking about. They would usually go places together. They were all pretty good friends, yet sometimes there would be some knockdown and drag out with the rivalries going on. Usually when the children went anywhere, they would walk together in a group. One Sunday night, on their way home from a community singing, Wally, Buster, Melvin, and Madge were in the group. Now Melvin we haven't talked about yet, or Buster for that matter. On the way home, as they passed the Turner's house, who had an apple orchard along the side of the road, Being boys, Wally and Buster decided that they would like to climb over the fence and get them some apples to eat. So over the fence they went. Wally and Buster were not aware that previous to this night, someone had been stealing apples from the Turner's orchard by the bushel. So to protect the orchard, the men were out waiting to catch the thieves. They were prepared to shoot them. The boys got over the fence. A man hiding in the field yelled for them to stop, or they would be shot. Both boys came back over the fence in a hurry, but at a different place than they had climbed over. Buster came out okay. He came out in the ditch and walked down in this ditch until he was caught up with the rest of the kids. He came out in the road as if nothing unusual had happened. But Wally wasn't so lucky. Where he came out, he landed in a berry patch full of berries. He got himself all scratched up and tore his pants. The man in the field came closer and recognized Wally and asked him, "Why didn't you come and knock on the door and ask for some apples? I would have given each one of you an apple to eat." He didn't mind if the children had some apples, but he just didn't want it taken out by the bushels. Their recreation was very limited. On weekends, it was usually spent going to church or community singing on Sunday night. Sometimes a group would get together for a baseball game. She remembers her father in the winter as always being good about building the fires in the fireplace and the cook stove. He would also help the mother with the cooking of breakfast. The family tried to be all together around the table at mealtimes. Then the day would begin for them. Their father would leave with the boys to do the outside duties. Charlie would tell the boys and hired hands what he wanted them to do in the fields. Then he would leave to work in the country store. Remember, he owned that country store. Lula had to be a good homemaker to keep things going in the routine of the day with so many babies and children to take care of. Yet each of the children had some duties as soon as they were old enough to help. The raising of a large family in the Depression and the World War I days, there wasn't any luxuries. There were times when food was scarce. Yet Madge never remembers a time that they went hungry. There were times that the crops of the garden didn't produce as much as they had hoped for because of the rains or the lack of rain, but they could depend on the food that had been canned. They could get meat, as much meat as they wanted, because they had animals that they could butcher. They had cows for milk and butter for meat also, and chickens and for eggs also. Many times other people had a lot less than they had, and they would come to Charlie for help. Sometimes if they had money, they would pay for the eggs or the milk. The way Charlie and Lula brought money into the house was by selling cream, eggs, and chickens. Lula would give a little money to the children when they went to town on Saturdays. Going to town was an all-day affair for the family. Whether the children got money or not, it was a treat for them to get to go to town. Madge remembers a time her mother had saved some money to get water piped into the house, and her father at the store had given out so much credit to the customers they had not paid up. Her father's suppliers were putting pressure on him to pay. Charlie had to go to Lula for her project money, and she gave it to him reluctantly. It was a time that Charlie took a load of cattle hogs to the auction, but the prices were so low that he brought most of the load back home with him. So when it came time for the hog killing, some of the hogs were butchered and prepared for home-cured meat and put in the smokehouse with the hickory wood smoke to cure the meat. Charlie would hire some of the neighbor men to help them and share some of the meat with them. Lula was a praying woman, and she put her trust and faith in God. She didn't have much opportunity to get alone and pray, but Lula made to be alone with God and to pray. In the morning, she would get up before the rest of the family got out of bed and would go out of the house to have some time alone to pray. There were many early mornings, and Madge remembers hearing her mother praying in and out of the house. So many children, no one had a bed to themselves. There were double beds in one room, and there were 2 or 3 to the bed. They were in the front room, mother and father, sometimes a little one with them. There were times when there was 4 of us in the same bed. There was usually a cradle for the baby. After Lowell and Miriam were married, their room was left empty, and it had 1 bed in it. So Melvin and Madge, Melvin is another sister, got to share a bed there. Looking back over our past life, even with the bad times or the depression days, and the good times outweighed the bad. I love all my brothers and sisters. I left home the first part of May 1941. I had my 22nd birthday in Redding, California with Cecil and Nanny. At that time, they had moved out to California. Usually they lived in Oklahoma most of the time. I came to San Diego by Greyhound bus the first part of August. Wally had sent me money and wanted me to come and stay with Ruby. She had just had their first child. Very shortly after arriving in San Diego, I met Lloyd in church. He was active in the church. I went back to my home in Oklahoma with Benson and Lily Mae in September, then came back to California with them. Lloyd and I married in October 11th, 1941. That was my Richard and my wedding anniversary also. He was born and raised in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and I met him in California. That is Aunt Madge's story, the first girl, number 9 in the series. I hope you enjoyed today. This took a longer time to do because I had to clear out some memory where I could video this. It stopped 3 times, so if you've seen me moving around different ways and not looking quite the same, it's because it came at different times during the day that I had time to get this finished up. Please go back and watch this series if you'd like. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you haven't, and keep coming back. I just pray God will bless you in your life, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that God will just bless you and that you will always remember him. Jesus loves you. Jesus loves me. Thank the Lord for that. See you next.